CSR has received intensive attention from all sectors of society. Enterprises play a vital role in the development of the entire country's economy and society, which is being influenced increasingly by enterprise behaviors, including social responsibility behaviors. Corporate social responsibility, which can be abbreviated as CSR, which originated in the West, is a term that has been discussed worldwide and has
Okay.
No, thank you.
and has significantly increased the attention both in academia and in practice. Like other governments, the Chinese government has taken many measures to encourage enterprises to fulfill their social responsibility and disclose their CSR reports. However, the corporate social irresponsibility, which can be abbreviated as CSI, related behaviors occur from time to time. And next slide, please. And the second background of my study, Chinese traditional culture, with its long history, can be seen as moral resources to guideline CSR in China. China's excellent traditional culture has endured for thousands of years and has had a profound impact on people's thinking and the development of society. And it also plays an extremely important role in business ethics because of its edifying function. It has a dual guiding role of motivation and constraint on the behavioral decisions of enterprises, and also has an important influence on the practice of CSR in China. And the third background of my study, next slide, China's pharmaceutical manufacturing industry and CSR impact. China's pharmaceutical manufacturing industry has experienced rapid progress these years. The country's pharmaceutical market has already been the second largest in the world after that of the United States. Meanwhile, the rapidly aging Chinese society and subsequently increasing medical needs provide a range of opportunities for the further development of the industry. This industry has also undergone continuous and unexpected CSR-related incidents, such as low drug quality, fake medicines, commercial bribe, environmental pollution, superfluously high drug prices, and other problems. These have caused severe damages in many respects, whilst some pharmaceutical companies have realized this and tried to create more value through CSR activities. These are the background of my study. And the second part, let's move to the second part of the company. Problem statement. There are also three. The first one, insufficient research on the culturally specified Chinese CSR concept with Chinese characteristics. In China, the traditional culture norms and values are different compared to the West, and they all have influences on the CSR concept and performance. Therefore, even though the basic context of environmental management, social responsibility, and sustainable development is the same in China and the West, there are still very different priorities in CSR in China. Therefore, if one ignores this gap and imposes exactly the same concept on China, CSR may become a luxury and fail to be accepted by most Chinese enterprises. A culturally specified Chinese CSR concept with Chinese characteristics is underdeveloped and clearly needed. Okay, the second one, please. The second problem, CSR performance of pharmaceutical manufacturing industry in China needs to be examined. CSR research in industries other than pharmaceutical manufacturing is unlikely to be relevant to this industry. Thus, due to the uniqueness and importance of China's pharmaceutical In response to the problem statement, the research questions were introduced. They are the first one: what are the characteristics of CSR in the context of Chinese traditional culture? And number two, what is the current status of CSR fulfillment in China's pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, and the level of social responsibility fulfillment consistent across enterprises in this industry? And the third one, does Chinese traditional culture have a different impact on the fulfillment of social responsibility by corporations with different ownership structures? And the research objectives. The objectives of this research are essentially threefold. And the first one, to investigate the characteristics of CSR in the context of Chinese traditional culture. And number two, to observe the fulfillment of CSR in China's pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. And number three, to conduct a comparative study on implementation of CSR in China's pharmaceutical manufacturing industry according to their ownership structures. And significance of the study: many enterprises make profit the overriding top choice, and they violate ethics and neglect social responsibility in order to maximize profits. The ethical standards that originally guided and influenced enterprises to undertake social responsibility are facing a huge impact. How to find positive value in traditional culture and construct a CSR content suitable for national conditions has become the focus of discussion in various countries. Chinese traditional culture has been inherited for thousands of years. To examine its intrinsic value for Chinese CSR isn't only of guiding significance for the construction of CSR content with Chinese characteristics, but also of certain practical significance for the standardizing of CSR behaviors. While limited studies have examined the traditional culture in relation to CSR studies, this study could be seen as a supplement and inspire future research using purposely selected industry, pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, from a Chinese cultural perspective. And literature review. Starting from the 1950s, scholars in Western developed countries have conducted in-depth study on CSR from different disciplinary fields. Yeah. I have combed through the relevant literature from four perspectives. And research review on the definition of CSR, research review on Chinese traditional culture, research review on CSR in China, research review on CSR in China's pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. And according to the first part, the theoretical study of CSR began with Howard Bowen's book, Social Responsibility of Businessmen, which defined social responsibility as a businessman's obligation to make decisions and take specific actions in accordance with the goals and values of society in line with the relevant policies. So far, the international community is still divided on the understanding of CSR, and there are mainly two kinds of assertions in the natural sense and the broad sense. The natural view is that CSR is a social responsibility that overrides the legal, moral, and economic responsibilities of enterprises, and that CSR is the responsibility of enterprises that exist legal and economic requirements and seek long-term socially beneficial goals. In the broad sense, the legal, ethical, and economic responsibility of enterprises are included in the scope and system of CSR. And on this basis, a top-down pyramid structure is formed, including four types of spontaneous responsibility: ethical responsibility, legal companies to fulfill, and it is the economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic expectations that society places on companies in a certain period of time. And the second one, research review on Chinese traditional culture. Traditional Chinese culture is composed of many ideological schools, among which Confucianism plays a leading role. And Confucianism has profoundly affected Chinese people's outlook on life and values for thousands of years. Chinese traditional Confucian and Taoist culture contains rich ecological philosophy. Its value core takes benevolence and love as the main axis. On the basis of self-cultivation and love, it extends the spirit of benevolence into all things in nature and combines love with nature so as to seek the highest realm of unity between man and all things on the earth. This culture is closely related to corporate environmental responsibility, especially the ideological quintessence. I'm not sure because that quintessence, such as unity of heaven and man, emphasizing righteousness over benefit and moderation for morality. In Chinese traditional culture has a positive impact on people's way of dealing with nature and economy. They pointed out that the region with higher scores of collectivity generally pay more attention to the overall interests of the society, while the pursuit of individual and the realization of self-value is vacant. This cultural phenomenon is more prominent in the countries and regions with Confucian culture circles. And the third, a research review on CSR in China. In the early 1990s, driven by multinational corporations and international trade, China began to pay attention to social responsibility issues, which prompted the theoretical community to strengthen the explanation and research on CSR and achieve a series of results. CSR in China has a national and strategic character, viewed as an instrument of state policy. It must promote overall economic and social development even when it is exercised by individual organizations. The government remains a strong driving force behind CSR reporting, despite the emergence of new stakeholders such as consumers, environmental NGOs, or stock exchanges. Even though there has been plenty of research on CSR in China, it can be considered irrelevant for the reason relates to the institutional factors, which are essentially varied from other countries when it comes to CSR and ethical practices in China. The sample size of the previous research was very limited, and it accounted for no more than 5% of the entire foreign pollution. These researchers are not alone because also other researchers support similar notions. And research review on CSR in China's pharmaceutical manufacturing industry. Enterprises are the main source of all kinds of pollution. Maybe 80% of environmental pollution comes from enterprises, and the energy consumption of heavy pollution industries accounts for as much as 70%. As we all know, the pharmaceutical manufacturing industry is also a high pollution industry, heavy pollution industry. It is generally believed that the innovation performance of pharmaceutical companies. And research methodology. The interpretive way of this study is grounded in the field of qualitative study. It would be the combination of the methods and narrative research, case study research, and comparative analysis method. The first one, narrative research. Maybe I can have another name, document analysis. I'm not sure whether it's equal.
No, it's not.
Not equal. Similar.
Similarities, yeah.
Okay. Narrative research concerns literature and data collected from the research papers, reports, and journal articles, as well as anecdotal evidence collected by other researchers on the same topic. The ideas of social responsibility in Chinese traditional culture and Western CSR theories all have important reference values and practical significance for Chinese enterprises to assume CSR, which this study will conduct focused analysis and examination. And the second case study is an in-depth explanation from multiple perspectives of the complexity and uniqueness of a particular project, policy, institution, program, or system in the real life. In this research, CSI-related behaviors in China's pharmaceutical manufacturing industry are chosen as cases. And this is comparative analysis. The goal of comparative analysis is to search for similarity and variance among units of analysis. This study conducts comparative analysis of the theoretical evolution and practical development of CSR in other countries and that in China under the influence of traditional culture. In addition, the study conducts a comparative study on implementation of CSR in China's listed pharmaceutical manufacturing industry according to their ownership structures. And yeah, that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's get into what you presented there. You understand that because I will lack focus a bit. Shall we go to the first few slides? First few slides. All right. So we have background in the next slide. So yeah, background further down. Okay, so yeah, about that. Go down further. Then you have problem statement, right? Go down. So your problem statement is about what? 2 or 3? 3, you're right. Okay. I will go back to the problem statement, and after looking at your research questions and then the methodology, I might go back to the methodology, to the problem statement. So we go to literature review, research question first. All right. So the characteristics, CSI, and the context. So your second research question, right? Are you defining the geographical scope as well? You just now you mentioned it's about what, 300 over pharmaceutical.
300
the listed companies, yeah. So you are using that as a sampling frame, yeah, and you're going to use a comparative case study.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will use twice the comparative listed pharmaceutical manufacturing
Mhm.
factories.
Okay.
Whether the Chinese traditional culture have different impact on them. For example, the SOEs or non-SOEs, private.
Um, these two, you will want to rephrase these two questions. So this is a yes/no question. So the answer to this is yes or no. You don't want to have research question with a yes or no. So you can say, is the level of
Maybe
to what extent? Replace that. To what extent
to what extent?
is the social responsibility fulfillment consistent across enterprises in the industry? Right? To what extent? So you want to say, or in what ways you can do that too? In what ways, to what extent, right? Does Chinese traditional culture have a different impact on the performance? So the answer is yes or no, right? Was it a mixed answer? So you don't want to have a does? So again, you can use the word in what ways or to what extent the Chinese traditional culture have a different impact. But then you say different impact, you are comparing with what, right? So might want to have just more the
Maybe
word.
under the influence of the Chinese traditional culture, what about their performance?
Okay.
To what extent?
So you want to compare the one with Chinese traditional culture and the one with
No,
the non-Chinese
just
tradition.
all of the listed companies are under the Chinese traditional culture's influence, I think. But their performance may be different. I mean, for the SOEs or for the foreign countries, for foreign companies or non-SOEs.
All right. Okay. I see your point then. Okay. So let's redo this one so that it is a safe question to ask instead of a question that you trap yourself into. Right, so, as Chinese tradition culture have a different. Can we ask what impact does Chinese traditional culture have on the fulfillment of social responsibility of by corporations with different ownership structures? So what impact does? So here you allow space for differential impact or similar impact. You can make that argument or you can make that analysis later on, but you are not promising that analysis. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But you're saying different analysis. Well, what you're saying, you are presupposing that there is a different impact, or so do you have a research design issue there? So by rephrasing it this way, then you open up the space for different types of findings and not trapping yourself. Right? So this one just now is the level to what extent, right? Is to what extent, or in what ways? Is it what ways? Okay, I'm going to go to something more fundamental. The fundamental thing I want to discuss is two things here. Right? One is that you did say, if you go down to the slide down there, down, almost towards the end, I think, which I thought is good towards the end. Methodology towards the end. We talk about CSI, it's on here.
Yeah.
There, CSI. We're not crime scene investigation, but corporate social irresponsibility. There's another CSI too, right? There's a CSI, this TV series. You know CSI, right?
No.
所以要紧张。
我 CSI 我 CSI
我们只知道 SDI。
American intelligence, right?
什么是
That's CIA.
CIA.
CSI 什么
CSI.
We only know SDI.
STI is what?
SSDI, SDI.
STI, what is it?
SCI is
Publishment paper related to the SDI, SSDI. Something like the
你说的 CSI 是啥呀
SSTI.
SDI.
corporate social
Irresponsibility. Yeah. Okay.
一样
We'll come back to that one.
okay,
So
okay.
here, I'm just catching it. So your case study will be in this research CSR related behaviors in China are chosen as case study. Okay, right. Now I like the idea because this one will be very unique. Not very unique, but be more would be more meaningful to research, right? So you do want to study to decide whether you want to study CSR or CSI. But CSI is connected to CSR, of course. It's under the roof of CSR.
Oh.
Right, still under the roof of CSR. But CSR is. By the way, what's your master's name?
Before this research, I didn't know CSI.
Oh, you didn't know
But
CSI.
I searched on the internet and
Yes.
some papers
Yes,
use
yes,
this.
yes.
But I think you're right. Maybe I couldn't use this. I just use CSR related issues or related events.
Events, okay.
Yeah, use
I
that.
actually like.
Maybe people confused.
I actually like you study this one.
You really
Yes.
yes.
Yes, because a lot of people. I mean, although I teach CSR, I think this one is more meaningful than CSR because a lot of CSR is used to whitewash, greenwashing, to cover the mistakes of the companies or the corporations. They put a good front, right? They show they're doing good, but then at the back they're doing something bad, right? So this is actually, but you got to decide which one you study. I particularly like this one because it's a shift of focus. So it's otherwise there's a lot of study CSR. I like that. It's also my field, but CSI is a more a critique of CSR, right? So, but you decide that you can decide. So this one will be if you decide to do this one, your sampling will need to be more purposeful sampling because you got to identify companies who have that problem and then choose those companies, right? So in terms of sampling, it is more challenging though. It's more challenging because companies do not want to reveal that they are irresponsible. Companies do not want to reveal irresponsible. Even that you have connection with the company, they still want to hide, especially under the umbrella of CSR. It's always good, right? So in terms of access to data, you got to think. Can you get access to data on this one, right? But if you have that, it'd be wonderful. So you go back and think about that. Now I'm gonna discuss more on the CSR part. Right? So I told you I like this one even more than you study CSR. But since we are discussing on CSR, I'm gonna talk as if you are studying CSR and the broader concept of CSR. Here before I was. Well, by the way, you have a lot of literature, which is very, very good. Like you have a lot, very extensive literature review. You have all the different categories of reviews, CSR in China, CSR in manufacturing, in pharmaceutical manufacturing. What you want to do in the presentation, you want to shorten it, right?
Yeah.
Maximum to 2 slides, maybe 3 slides is stretching it, but 2, maybe 3 slides. But you got to manage your time.
Table.
Yeah, a table will be good.
Okay.
But you really need to, you can go 3, but you got to manage your time. It's about time. It's not about. But you do want to show that you have covered the grounds you have covered. You have 5 areas or something like that, right? 4, 5? 4, okay, 4 areas. You want to show that you know the areas and what the different areas talk about. Just so like what Lee did just now was good by having a table there. But you do want to show. You want to explain to them what this area is about, the main key points about the areas, right? So you have to do that. So here we must get into the discussion of research strategy. So there's research strategy. I'm thinking, what is your research strategy here? So, is it inductive, deductive, abductive, reproductive? So, from what you presented here, Now you want to identify, and you say there are two parts to your research, right? There's a, you want to look at the philosophy of social responsibility, right? Chinese traditional CSR culture, and then you want to compare it with the conventional, so to say Western / conventional philosophy of CSR, and then you want to look at the other part to it. You want to look at the status, the practices of companies vis-a-vis in relation to the Chinese traditional CSR. So let me understand what you're doing, guys. So you have this, the Chinese traditional CSR. So you want to formulate this, and then you want to use that to research on the companies. This is what you want to do? Right? So you want to identify. So maybe when you say traditional CSR, Chinese traditional Chinese CSR, right? Should be Chinese over here. Traditional Chinese CSR, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or something like that, right? Right? So whatever. This is an example, and then you use this to analyze that. Is this what you want to do, or you're just thinking about it?
Yeah, and I have already collected some reports on the listed companies.
Some what?
CS reports.
Reports, okay,
Reports
yeah.
on the listed companies'
Yeah.
CSR performance
Mm-hmm.
from different aspects.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe have the relation with the Chinese traditional.
Alright, okay. So you want to study this, looking at different literature
Yeah.
or books or whatever, right? Right? And then to know the kind of the philosophy or something like that. Right? The philosophy of tradition. And then you formulate that, right? From there you get that one, and then you use that to analyze the companies, right? Okay. If you do this, this is what is called the deductive research strategy. So deductive research strategy is where you have a conceptual framework that you develop or you identify from other people, or theoretical framework that you develop or you identify from other people, and you just use that to analyze whatever you want to analyze. That be deductive. Right? Okay. You actually have a two-part research that can be challenging, that can be huge, because Chinese traditional CSR, right, and I kind of noted there are many related concepts to Chinese traditional CSR. Now, the word CSR is not a Chinese word, right? It's very much a Western concept. But like in our discussion before, and is where I encourage you to look at the Chinese traditional culture, is that the social responsibility in Chinese economic entities, Chinese social entities have ingrained, embedded in them the whole idea of social responsibility, right? So it existed even before the word CSR existed, right? It existed during the modern China, it existed during communist China, right? It existed even in older days of China, right? Before the dynasties, right? So in the if you go back, right, you want to think about how long you want to go back. So you want to go back, even if you look at the communist China, communist era of China, right? Not post Deng Xiaoping, before Deng Xiaoping, right? Before Deng Xiaoping. Huh? Before that, is in Mao Zedong time, you know that, right? I mean, there's an idea of the responsibility of the company to take care of the employees. Like like we said, there's clinics in the companies, right? They have clinics, they have schools. Is the head of the company, right? It's a economic unit, right? My knowledge of this is very limited. You will need to look at. So there's a economic unit. The economic unit, not unit, small unit, but a very big unit, right? So that unit will take care of the children, school, medicine, employment, right? So that is social responsibility. That's the socialist or communist concept of responsibility, right? So that is one of the. So you got to identify what was that called? I don't know. Is there a term for that? Is there a term, a Chinese term for that?
劳动保障局算吗？
社会保障、人力资源、
社会保障局。
社会保障。
We have such kind of organizations.
You have an organization.
Yeah.
Is it in the past or still existing now?
人力资源社会保障局。
I don't know when is the original year,
Yeah,
but
yeah, the situation you talk right now is maybe 人民公社, but now
it's no longer
exists.
Okay, so this is during the communist revolution, right? They created this, right? After that is the socialist communist revolution, right? They created this, right? So that is actually social responsibility. I'm not saying it's bad or good, right? I'm saying that it is social responsibility. So when you have children to get employment to work, they go to that unit, to that space, right? So that is a related concept. It is traditional, right? So now you're going to think about the other concepts in the Chinese society, Chinese traditional society, right? And you want to identify that, and then you got to think about the time. How long do you want to go? How far back you want to go? Because talking about Chinese civilization, thousands of years, right?
It could be divided into several periods.
Several periods, yes.
Dynasties.
Different dynasties.
Modern times.
Modern. So even modern China is
Before the new China.
Before the new China. So before even communist China, before that, during that period, there's the
several periods.
yeah. So you want to identify before that, right? So, and then there's also the nationalist movement before that, the fall of the Qing dynasty. The Qing dynasty is the last dynasty, you know. So which period you want to identify, or you do not want to make that an issue, or you say, well, there's something that is continuous since the beginning, since all the days until now. There's the Chinese traditional values. So you got to make the argument. Like Confucianism. Confucianism is what? Tang Cha. What is it? Confucianism. Confucius. 孔子是这种。唐朝？那唐朝不是唐朝，不是。
什么时候？
孔子。
现在查一下吧。
哎呀，你不知道历史啊！哎呀，don't know your own history, man.
So why I want to research this is I think Chinese traditional culture is missing.
Yes. I definitely.
I don't know about the
That's why remember we had this discussion. I said, well, in the Chinese society, there is that social responsibility, So we do not want to say that. I mean, you can, but you do not want. It's a waste if you say that. It's a CSR. It's a Western. Suddenly we have to have Western standards and all that, right? Because there's the Chinese society is an old society. So it's an old civilization. Definitely there will be values there. So the thing about this one is that you either define it based on time, and you say my time will stop right before the communist revolution, or you're taking the communist revolution onwards. You got to decide when, right? So you got to decide when, or you don't make this an issue. You say, well, there's some evergreen kind of evergreen system, a long-lasting value system. Something a long-lasting value system, value system in existence in the Chinese society that is that it's arguably a form of social responsibility or economic corporate. There's no corporate at that time. So, like I said, so at that time, you want to go back during Kongzi time. There's also Sun Tzu, the art of war. Sun Tzu, art of war, what? 书法 兵法 the art of war. Right. So there's also corporate strategy in Sun Tzu. There's also a corporate strategy, although it's not about social responsibility, but there's strategy in there, right? So when you're strong, you do this. When you're weak, you do this. You're not in the middle ground, you do this. So there's also Lao Tzu. There's also don't forget about all the old religions, the Tao Jiao, all the and then all the Jing, I do not want to confuse it with my comic books. Yi Jing Jing.
Yi Jing.
Yi Jing.
Yi Jing.
These are all scriptures, all sacred books, right? Chinese.
Different books.
Different sacred books of China, in China. So they also. So I mean, like Mutali is studying. There's a period in Iraq that predates Islam. There's also all Iraq, which is not Iraq, which is go back to older days. So when you say traditional, you can go very, very old.
Go to the heritage.
Go to the heritage. So to me, this is a very important part to work on, because you're going to operationalize this, you're going to identify that. Right?
Maybe I can have two ways. One is from the time, just divided into several periods, from and the second one, maybe just it will extract some very key cultural elements. For example, just like that slide, really there's 以礼之信啊，然后 and 像重商啊 the commercial group.
Okay, yeah.
Just extract some very key cultural elements without talking about the time.
The time, okay.
Yeah.
So
because although there were Confucians, Taoism and Buddhism, but not all of these values can be used in CSR. I think maybe just some. So you extract some keywords, key elements.
Yeah. See, the point I want to put forth is that CSR is a new concept.
Yeah.
The Chinese society has older concepts, older system of socio-economic governance, right? That might be better or bigger or whatever, deeper than CSR concept, right? So you want to capture that. Right? So CSR might be defining the space this much, but the Chinese traditional culture might be defining social responsibility that much more, right? So if during the communist revolution, the responsibility of the company is big, huge. If you're sick, you go to the company. If you for unemployment, children, go to the company. Now the company is limited. If you're sick, you get insurance. You don't have insurance, okay, bye bye to you, right? Something like that. I don't know about China, but companies now, they are very capitalist nature, right? So before might not be like that. So what you want to capture is the traditional. When you say traditional, it might be applicable, might not be applicable, but you got to make the argument, right? You got to make the argument. By the way, the Chinese traditional value system also, there's a big diaspora, Chinese diaspora. They also brought the value brought when they come over to Southeast Asia. They have the value system also, which is traditional, and they do not know what CSR is. So what I'm saying is that here is where it's very tricky. If you want to go time, it's a big project. I mean, China has a long history, so it's not easy to identify. Yeah. So you got to be very, what is it? You have to go very, very strategic and very practical. So another way is to identify. I'm going to look at only 4 things. I'm going to look at the 6 things, and you justify only the 6. And by the way, there are more. You can do that, right? And why do you take these 6 things? You got to justify. You got to explain why you take these 6 things out of so many more, right? So this is the important part of your formulation of the conceptual analytical framework, because you're going to use this to analyze the companies, right? Because you're using deductive. Deductive approach is difficult, especially at the beginning. Abductive approach will be difficult at the end. Because here is where you got to really think, you got to justify, and this is where they can question you, attack you at this point. Right?
Yeah. When I do my research, I found so many things to learn.
So many, of course.
And the Chinese traditional culture and the industry.
Industry, yes.
Yeah, and even some policies, because the listed companies.
Yeah, listed company.
The numbers,
Yeah.
the guidelines, the policies.
Yeah.
And SOEs, the state-owned companies.
State-owned companies, yeah.
So many things to learn. So difficult.
Well, you can say, well, you will identify only state-owned companies. You can do that too. You can shortlist it, your sample there,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
You can sample. So when you focus more, you become more of an expert in certain areas there. So your keywords later on will be, for example, SOE, Chinese traditional culture, traditional, something like that. So you can be more focused, right? So here you got to make it manageable. Otherwise, this is a paper by itself. This is a PhD by itself here. Chinese traditional, whatever you call it, social responsibility philosophy. It's a PhD there. You don't have to do this. It's already a PhD, right? You can do a philosophy research.
Really?
Right.
But that's more difficult, right?
It is difficult. That's right. That's why we're going to make it. We have 2 of your colleagues. One is my brother, who's doing social philosophy of the Tariqat religious order. The other one is Pizarro. Pizarro is doing a social philosophy of a leader in Indonesia. So analyzing the social philosophy. So this alone can be a PhD. So, but you don't want to make this your PhD, right? You want to make this your PhD.
I think maybe just the first part is more difficult.
Yes.
It's really very difficult to explain.
Yeah, and to justify, right? Because
and you have to make a long chapter about the culture.
Yes.
But I just want to part.
Yeah, you just want to. So this is where you got to decide. I won't be deciding for you, but you got to decide. Right? You got to decide which part of you want to take or how you want to do it. You won't be able to cover everything there because and everything there is already a lot. We're talking about thousands of years of history in China, right?
Maybe I just focus on SOEs in this industry.
You could do that.
Easier.
It will be easier, maybe. Yeah, be manageable. Don't use it easier. Manageable, more manageable. But here is still you need to handle this part still.
Yeah.
Okay.
The relation between the traditional culture and the CSR.
CSR,
Yeah.
because in Chinese tradition, the government at the local level is very connected to the economic sector, right? It's very connected. So because it's so that's why communism really works, socialism really works, because there's sense of social responsibility, right? So if you're rich, you're supposed to be responsible, right? That kind of thing, right? So SOE, you can make the argument because SOE is a state-owned enterprises. Yeah. There are different words for SOE, but they also known as state government linked corporations, GLC. There's another word for it, right? So when you research on that literature, you got to look at the other terms they use. Yeah, so it's not the SOE. What is it? Government linked corporations, state-owned enterprises. That's what you use. So you got to check different words for it. Right? In Indonesia, they have a different word for it too. Yeah, which is BUMN. But then Indonesia will be more complex because they have BUMN and then BU provincial level, and then they go to district level, then they go to the village level. But BUMDes, yeah. I have actually done some research with not state-owned, village-owned, village-owned companies. They even have village-owned companies. And they're interesting. Village-owned companies, their aim might not be profit. Interesting.
We also have
You also
in
have
the
that.
countryside.
The countryside, yeah.
Yeah.
Cooperatives, right? Cooperative. Before it was cooperative, right? So in the countryside, it's very much the social responsibility is a big thing. So like the village owned the BUMDes or something. BUMDes, what is it called? BUMDes, yeah. The one I researched on, which is in Malang, the company, right? The focus is not making money, but developing skills, employment. So interesting. The capitalist logic doesn't apply to them because it's a village owned, it's a community owned. So it's a different logic at work. It's interesting there, right? So
impossible.
Huh?
Impossible in China maybe.
Impossible.
我们在村里不也有吗？就是
This kind.
Yeah, village, right?
yeah village line.
So
Not in pursuit for
money.
profit. Not
Yeah.
for that.
So
Maybe not concentrate on
Not
the
concentrate.
profit, but should be
Should be.
concentrated only a little
A bit,
because
yeah.
they should pay their building, their salary.
that's right. Yeah.
And
So
not concentrate.
not concentrate. That's right. So you see a different institutional logic at work. The word be institutional logic. The institutional logic is different than the institutional logic of the corporation, right? But that institutional logic, right, is based on certain value system, and the value system is, you can identify that, right? So this is why I said it's a waste if you let go of the traditional cultural values and you say we take on the CSR framework that is coming from the West. I know the world is accepting it, but one country that can challenge global standards is China. China can challenge global standards because China alone is big enough to challenge global standards, right? All right, coming to the methodology part. What is I want to say? Narrative risk. Here you want to study companies, right? Okay. So you need to go do further research on the different types. So you said narrative research, and then you have what down here? Further case study. Hanif, can you go down here? Here's the case study, and then you have comparative analysis. So let me talk about the narrative research. So narrative research is.
I'm not sure because I learned you already the historical.
Okay. So narrative research, the basic assumption is that meaning or understanding can only be arrived or can be arrived more effectively when you understand the story. You know what I mean? So it's very much an individual focus research. So I want to understand Pak Rudi, I got to ask him, tell me about the story where, if you do something, it's in his life story that I can find why he does what he does. So the context is a story of a person. That is the context. The context is not necessarily usually people look at the group or the family, or here is the story of the person, the experience, and how the person
Oh.
put meaning to his story, right?
It's like subjective.
It's very subjective.
Yeah.
It is subjective,
Yeah.
basically, almost 100% subjective. Yeah, yeah. So if you're interested to study managers, you can use this one.
No, I don't.
You're not studying managers, you don't use narrative research. Document analysis, yes, you can use.
Yeah.
You can use the document analysis. So
Is this close to the anthropology?
it is close to anthropology, but anthropology might not be focusing on a person's life story that much. So narrative research will be looking at your story, and then you tell the, and they might, if I cannot hear from you, I'll look at your diary or what you have done, trying to trace the story of the person, the narrative. So now it's very useful, this research, because people are bloggers, people are Instagrammers, people are Facebook, they tell the story to the world, right?
How about, for example, Dr.
Yeah.
So how about, for example, I want to study Dr. Muhammad Rabani as a socialist.
Sociologist. I'm not a socialist, I'm a sociologist.
Sociologist. Okay, sorry. Sociologist. I need to study Dr. Muhammad Rabani as a sociologist.
Yeah.
I want to do research, but
Yeah.
social research about him. This is narrative research.
Yeah, you can
So I
work.
go to your
You gotta pick me. You gotta come ask me.
your research, your article, your background, your bibliography. That's narrative.
You can use that,
Yeah.
but you gotta refer back to me as well.
Okay.
Because narrative means somebody is narrating it. Somebody is telling the story.
Okay.
That somebody will be the person they're researching. Right?
Okay, I got it.
Why?
So if, for example, someone he did already, that
Then-
would be a narrative. Not be-
then
Maybe
you
analyze.
can look at his works, as in diaries, or you will
okay.
try to extract. It's not narrative from the first person anymore. You're doing something, as a secondary data analysis. So what is it? So can you use diaries and pictures? You can use that one, but you want to get the person. It's almost like abductive as well, but
Yeah.
abductive we're studying phenomenology. We're studying a phenomena. This one is studying the person. Right. Why do I take up sociology? Yeah. I used to be a management student, and I chose to become sociology when I went to the States. When I see people become homeless, and I say I'm a third year and I don't like capitalism. This is when you got to study something else. So I changed my major to become sociology. So that's the narrative. So maybe document analysis, right? So and then you want to be careful as well. When you say document analysis, you want to specify what kind of documents. Reports. If you say paper, newspaper, you say newspaper. Where is it? Reports. You say reports, right? Reports. So there's the annual reports, the CSR report, sustainability report, ESG report, right?
Yeah.
So you want to specify that. But if you say journal articles, are you doing journal articles about a company, about industry, or what is it you're looking at, right? You got to, because this one is a field by itself, the document analysis. So you want to be specific what documents you want to identify as your data. It's secondary research, secondary data.
Yeah,
This one is secondary
secondary.
data, right? You identify. Maybe be careful. Yeah. Thank you, Hanif. Now, the other part of your methodology or your research design and is what you say about the comparison, right? If I heard correctly, you said the Chinese companies will be practicing Chinese traditional values, traditional culture. Did you say that? Is it? And then
under the influence of
very traditional, or you be okay. And then the non-Chinese company, meaning the foreign companies, right, will be under a different influence, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What about the combined company?
Yeah, it could be so. I think there's an assumption that can be attacked by the examiners later on, because so not all Chinese-owned companies might be practicing Chinese values or
Of course.
right. So if for instance, if you have an Intel company operating in China, right, and then the Intel company sourced from a local Chinese company. Foxconn, what is it? The one that supplying for Apple company? Foxconn. The big company in China, that's Foxtron, whatever.
Foxconn.